Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into the MVP show for April 25th, 2021. We were off for a week, but now we're back alongside Dan Passante and Brennan Miller. I'm John Vicari. The Super League came, and then the Super League is gone. We've been gone for that long, but it really hasn't been that long. It's only been about 12 or 13 days. How we all doing?
I'm doing good. We're recording this earlier than I think we ever have, but Hey, what are you going to do?
I think I would say I'm doing well despite that as well. Thanks, you're good.
Absolutely. There's a lot to talk about today, just specifically in New York sports. It's a great time to be a New York sports fan, no matter what side of the coin you look at. If you're a basketball fan, you have two teams in the playoffs right now. If you're a baseball fan, okay, things are early on this season, but your teams aren't dreadful, even though one has had a poorer start than what was expected. Hockey-wise, if you're a Ranger fan, you see the optimism of the future. And if you're an Islander fan, you have a team again in the playoffs. And then if you're a fan of either of the three, you could say teams that represent New York in the NFL, you have a draft that's coming soon as well. Where we'll start, though, is the main story. And at the time of this recording, because obviously they play a game which was yesterday, Saturday, against the Raptors. But at the time of this recording, the Knicks are on an 8-game winning streak, which seems hard to imagine because this team won a total of 21 games last season and finished 12th in the Eastern Conference. They currently stand 4th in the East Conference right now with basically the same roster. Obviously, they added rookies like Emmanuel Quickly, who has added a lot of guard depth for them, and Obi Toppin has been great off the bench in certain spots and certain games. But overall, this is the same Knicks team, just with way better coaching with Coach Thibodeau, a team that is focused, and a team that I think deserves respect because for a while this season, and we've talked about it on our show, how the Nets are obviously the toast of town in terms of just sheer talent. They have a great big three that has championship expectations right off the bat, and they're stacked. And the Knicks have been I wouldn't say a laughingstock. I think other people would, but it's been a struggle the last couple of years. But even in this year, the Knicks find a way to be great and to take some of the shine, or most of the shine, especially most of the New York popularity, away from the Nets by having a great season. And it's not so much a conversation about, can the Knicks be good this year? Because that was a conversation we had multiple times, or who's more fun to watch, the Knicks who are gritty and have, less on-court talent but are playing well, or the Nets, which is just an offensive showcase. But right now, eyeballs are glued to the New York Knicks. The Garden, which is obviously not at full capacity due to COVID, is buzzing still. There is a renewed energy that hasn't been seen in New York really since the beginning of last decade in the Carmelo Anthony and Jeremy Lin teams of 2012 and 2013. It's a fun time to be a Knicks fan. It's a fun time to be a New York basketball fan, which, Dan, hasn't been said in a while.
It's true. It really has been a while. If you look at last year after 60 games compared to this year, this is a tweet according to Victor Buschop. Thank you, Victor. Last year, the Knicks were 18-42 at this time. Now they're 33-27. That is a world of a difference. And, in this 8-game win streak, they have some wins against some good teams. Like we said, they beat the Raptors. They beat the Lakers without LeBron. They beat the Mavericks, who are a formidable opponent. A few times went to overtime, and each time the Knicks have come out on top. So, New York basketball fans, as far as the Knicks are concerned, have a lot of reasons to be happy, and I'm sure there's a number of people out there saying, the Knicks haven't beat anybody. They beat the Pelicans twice. They beat the Hawks. They beat the Hornets. But that's what good teams do. They beat teams that they are better than. And New York has been doing that for a few weeks now. Now, can they continue it? We'll see as the playoffs are getting closer and closer. But as of right now today, the New York Knicks are not only in the playoffs, but they are the 4th seed in the playoffs. That is pretty unbelievable, ahead of some teams that no one expected them to be ahead of, like the Celtics, the Heat they're ahead of. It's really been exceeding expectations in the best way possible for Knicks this year.
Yeah, it goes the East Conference right now. Nets, the Sixers, and then Milwaukee in that order, which is just really amazing. And then there's a drop-off, maybe level and tier, however you want to look at it. But then it's the Knicks. As you mentioned, Dan, not the Celtics, not the Raptors. Raptors aren't even a playoff team. It's the Knicks. And I think the main thing, and I don't want to overblow this, obviously, the Knicks still need number one. At best, on a championship team or a team that goes to the conference finals, Julius Randle's a number 2 option. And that's no knock at him. It's just the way the team has to be formatted, or they bring in someone of the same talent level and both of them play together. That's fine. But Randle has been unbelievable, an all-star. He won't, obviously, but and he doesn't deserve, in my opinion, either, the MVP award, but should be a finalist in it. Obviously, the stats may not compare to some of the leading scorers in the NBA, but what Randle means to his team, the value that he brings, is tops in NBA and towards the top, at least. Maybe not undeniably the top, but definitely towards the top. You have R.J. Barrett, who's just a different player this year, has started in all 60 games and is averaging just over 17 points per game. And then you look, and even though I like to devalue it just because I think it matters probably the least, or at least I did going into the season, but I thought coaching in basketball was probably less than the other 4 major sports, and it was 4th. But you just show that this year this case, example, shows that that's not the case. Tom Thibodeau has pretty much made a team that was irrelevant last year with 2 added rookies, as I mentioned at the top, relevant this year because he's a great defensive basketball mind and he has players that want to play for him. Derrick Rose and Tom Thibodeau have been together for most of Derrick Rose's basketball career, pretty much, if you go back to college and high school and Team USA stuff as well. There's been that imprint. And just the other guys on this team, bringing in Taj Gibson, even though at the time when the Knicks had him 2 years ago, he added nothing. Now he's adding. And the starters that they have, it's not a roster that should blow you away. It's a roster that, again, finished 12th in the East last year. But Tom Thibodeau is getting the most out of this team. It should be rewarded. It's going to be fun down the stretch. Now, the question I want to ask both of you are where the expectations lie for this team. Because obviously they are not the top dogs in the NBA. They're not even the top dogs in the East or in their state as of right now. But where should Knicks fans, because I think at the beginning of the year it was, hey, if they make the playoffs, that would be great. That would be admirable. What are the expectations right now for the Knicks heading into not the postseason yet, but on the track to? And Dan, we can start with you.
Well, if the Knicks, if the playoffs started today, right now the Knicks are the 4th seed. I think there's a play-in series this year for the playoffs. So I believe the Knicks would play the Hawks to start out if the playoffs began today. And that's a series that the Knicks should win, I think. They beat the Hawks yesterday. They have the same exact record as them. I would expect them to win that series. And really, I mean, up until they face the Bucks, the Sixers, or the Nets, I think those are 3 teams that not only in their actual team record, but I think those are 3 teams that are probably better than the Knicks. I think they should be able to beat all these teams. I mean, the Celtics are not great this year at all. Obviously, the Heat are down. The Hornets are struggling. The Pacers are the 9 seed. It's so weird to say because the Knicks, like we've said, have been so struggling for so long now. But I think the Knicks could be the 4th best team in the East. And I think that they should win every series until they have to play someone better.
Yeah. I agree. Win the first playoff series is where my expectations lie. Brennan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I look at it and I don't understand because the Knicks at this point, not just in the season, but in over time. I mean, over the last 10 years, the Knicks have kind of been the laughingstock of New York basketball, and I don't understand why all of a sudden we go from, ideally the Knicks coming into the season wanted to make the playoffs, and now where we have like title aspirations for them. Like let's still keep this in perspective and say that. Yeah, I understand your face, John, but some people.
I like a list. I'd like a list of these people with title aspirations.
I understand that perspective because they've been good this year, but at the same time, you can't expect anything bigger just because they've been playing a little bit better, than you expected them to. Like, the quality of the team is still the quality of the team. I get it that Julius Randle has been playing out of his mind and playing a lot better than a lot of people thought that he would be. But at the same time, I think playoffs are just playoffs. Playoffs are the expectation, and that's kind of what you have to stick with. Like, yeah, you got to be happy that you made the playoffs, regardless of how that first round goes, whether you have to play in game or not. Like, yes, I get it that now that the season has gone on, you sit there and you go, okay, maybe this team's a little bit better. Maybe they should win a round of the playoffs, but still temper your expectations because for a long time this team has not been very good. So I think you got to be happy with what you got, pretty much.
I think most Knicks fans are, especially because of the lack of winning basketball, not even playoff basketball, the lack of winning basketball that they've seen over the last couple of years. So I think they're there, but I understand, Brian, where you're coming from too in terms of just everyone relaxing because people tend to get out of hand. I think a good comparison, it sort of ties into what we're going to go to after the break, but there's sort of the Bills when they had their first playoff season with Josh Allen. There was no playoff or no, Super Bowl expectations, and the Bills were happy to be in the playoffs and they knew that they had a future quarterback in Josh Allen. And then going into last season, this year, which hopefully for the Knicks is the next couple years, there's championship expectations. I don't know if that's a great comparison. Maybe Dan could talk on it more. But not that Allen came out of nowhere, but there was hope. There was hope in Randall acquiring him that he was going to develop into this star that he was drafted to be. And not by the Knicks, but by the Lakers. And R.J. Barrett, who the Knicks drafted as well, to turn into this top 3 player in which they picked him. And so far, that has been the case.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks and the Bills are 2 franchises that were relevant for a really long time, and now they're finally getting there. That's true. That's definitely true. When the Bills were making the playoffs in Josh Allen's first few years, I kept telling all the Bills fans, it's okay if we lose because he's young. He needs to learn these things. So, and I think it's kind of the same idea here for the Knicks. They obviously are showing that they're having a great season, and if they could go on to win some games, they should. I mean, that'd be great for them to win this early on, and potentially this run that they're trying to put together here. But if the Knicks only win a series, or even if they don't win a series this year, that's not the end of the world. This is a great season to build off of if you're a Knicks fan.
So there you go. The Knicks, as we mentioned, currently on an 8-game winning streak. Obviously don't know yesterday's game versus the Raptors because of the time of this recording. But nonetheless, New York basketball at a pretty much an all-time high in recent memory because you have the Nets in first place as well. When we come back, we're going to talk a little NFL draft. It's this Thursday, and both New York teams, or again, I keep talking about this with the New York teams. The Bills pick actually late in the draft because they had a great season, but the New York Giants and the New York Jets both of them have picks in the top 15. And Brennan Miller, not some NFL.com, ESPN, blah, blah, blah mock draft. We have Brennan Miller giving you his thoughts, his mock draft. A lot of research and preparation went into this. It'll be interesting to see who he has. The Jets picking at 2 and the Giants at 11, at least for me, as well as the other teams that are in that top 15, top 20 range. So after the break, we'll hear from Brennan, and hopefully he has the Giants picking Devontae Smith. That's all I'll say. You're watching and listening to the MVP show on YouTube and on VIC Radio.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Welcome back to the MVP show here on VIC Radio and on our YouTube channel. You could follow the MVP show at the MVP show on Twitter. We are also on TikTok, the MVP show. Maybe a little bit more difficult to find, but we are on there as well in terms of social media. And we also have a presence in the vast world of mock drafts because Brennan Miller, the M in the MVP show, has made a mock draft. The draft obviously this Thursday on ESPN and NFL Network, and a huge one, a franchise-altering one possibly for the New York Jets, and the Giants obviously want to get better as well as a lot of other teams. Very quarterback-heavy, but Brennan, you could take it away. Your mock draft, I think we know everyone should know who you have at number one, but I think as we get into it a lot more, we'll see maybe some surprises. And again, I'm just waiting around till 11 to see what you think. But your mock draft for the 2021 NFL draft.
All right, I will preface this by saying I do this every year.
Okay.
I average getting about 5 picks correct.
Nice.
Which is just one lower than the average for the people who get paid to do mock drafts. So, not bad. So let's get right into it, actually. I mean, we know, I'm pretty confident about getting at least 2 correct this draft.
Nice.
So we know at 1 and 2 it's going to be Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags and Zach Wilson going to the Jets. That's pretty up and they've tried to hide it. Whatever. Jacksonville has already given Lawrence the playbook. You have to assume New York is doing the same thing with Zach Wilson. Those 2 are going to go 1 and 2 without a doubt. Number 3, I feel like it's interesting with the 49ers. I do think they go quarterback. I don't think that there's any doubt. I think they go Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields, there was a point in time where Justin Fields was the undisputed number 2 quarterback in this draft class. And that was, in the second to last college football game of the season. So where we got to Zach Wilson being the number 2, I mean, I get it. He's a good talent, but I still think that Justin Fields is a guy that has a lot of potential to be a good NFL quarterback, especially with the way that the league is going. I think he's very, very talented. And I have him going number 3 to the 49ers. I think they're going to be very, very happy with that pick. I get it. People are talking about scheme and adjustment, and Mac Jones is a guy that sits in the pocket, and he's going to revolutionize and bring the pocket passer back to today's game. And it's like, man, Justin Fields is just like he does things that a lot of guys can't do. And if you go and you watch an entire season of college football and you see how successful those guys are, and then you let pro days go by, and I get it. Like you can watch all their throws and whatever and say that maybe Mac Jones throws a better ball than Justin Fields. But if you want a better athlete, then you're going to go with Justin Fields because I think he's proven that he is a better athlete of the 2. Really, I mean, it's a low bar, but I think that he's proven that he is, and that's where the way that the league is going. So I think that the 49ers go with Justin Fields. I like him better, and I think that Mac Jones doesn't go for a while, actually.
Brennan, before sorry to cut you off, I just want to know, because obviously mock draft, it's like who the teams are picking. If you were to rank the top 5 quarterbacks, sorry to put you on the spot, by the way, but I think you know your ranking. To rank your top 5 quarterbacks just based on ability, not where you think they're going to go, but based on how you think they'll pan out, do you have an order? I think we know top 3, but...
Yeah, it's Lawrence, and then I think Wilson and Fields are pretty interchangeable, to be honest.
Okay.
I understand why Zach Wilson is going guaranteed number 2 to the Jets, but I think that talent-wise, I think those 2 are up there. And then honestly, I like Trey Lance. It's pretty much the same reason why you have this guy. Trey Lance at one point was projected number 6 overall to the Carolina Panthers, and he was a guy that people looked at and were like, yeah, this is going to be. He was the undisputed number 2 overall quarterback for a long time. So I like Trey Lance at 4 and then Mac Jones at 5. Like, I get it. Mac Jones obviously put up a lot of numbers, but look at his receiving core. He's going to have 2 wide receivers go in the top 10 more than likely. So maybe he just had more weapons. But yeah, that's my top 5. I think Jones at 5, Lance at 4, and the rest Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields, with the 2 and 3 being pretty interchangeable. So let me move to number 4. I actually have a trade here,
Wow.
I will say that my mock draft a little outdated. The last time I did it was a week ago. And this will change as we get closer, but I had the Cowboys trading up to number 4 with the Atlanta Falcons because of their infatuation with tight end who will, without a doubt, convert to wide receiver, Kyle Pitts. I had the Cowboys taking Kyle Pitts at number 4. I think that he's a weapon that a lot of teams want. I will say, regardless of whether or not the Cowboys trade up, I do think that Kyle Pitts goes in this number 4 spot to whatever team ends up going there. I think he just fits really well in a lot of systems. I think he's a playmaker, and I think that he's going to be a weapon for some team for a very, very long time. Number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, they traded back. They felt confident in their ability to get a guy that was going to make them a better team. I actually said, and I remember I wrote a sticky note and put it on my light that I have in front of me about, 3 months ago. It was around Christmas time. That the Bengals were going to trade up to take Penei Sewell. I don't think they have to. I think they get him at number 5 because I think that the teams ahead of them are going to draft a quarterback or weapons. So I think the Bengals take an offensive tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence. Number 6, the Dolphins, first wide receiver taken in this very strong wide receiver class, and it's going to be Jamar Chase. He has shown that he's one of the best wide receivers in the country. Obviously, he didn't win a Heisman, like a guy that we're going to talk about here in a second. But I think that he is a very, very talented wide receiver, and he brings a lot of the physical skills that a team is looking for in the NFL. Number 7, the Detroit Lions. They're going to take Devonta Smith. They talk a lot about I know. I'm sorry, John. They talk a lot about Waddle or Smith coming out of Alabama. Which wide receiver is going to be better? I think when you look at it, look at what I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep pounding it in. Look at what they did in the regular season. Look at what they did when they were actually playing against guys who they're going to be playing against at the next level. Devonta Smith, what did he do? He won a Heisman. Like, I get it. He's not the physical specimen that DK Metcalf was coming out of college, or Jamar Chase is really in the same draft class. He's not that. But he's a guy that's proven over and over and over and over again that he doesn't have to be this 210-pound, 6'5" monster to catch passes and toast people. He can look like he was supposed. They just pulled him out of a Mighty Mites game, and he's 12 years old, and he can still go and torch people for 200 yards. So I think Devonta Smith is the best weapon left in the draft, and that's why the Lions take him at 7.
Mighty Mites. Hold on. Mighty Mites, by the way. But I just sorry to cut you off again. ESPN Mel Kiper told me 4 days ago that Devontae Smith's going to the Giants. How is he going at 7 to the Lions? What, they just need a receiver?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Lions have a long way to go before they can actually, be a competitive team. I would assume that Mel Kiper's saying that he's going to go to the Giants because he has Jalen Waddle going in the top 10.
Okay.
I don't. I like Smith on my wide receiver big board better than Waddle, which is why I have him as a second wide receiver. Well, third if you count Pitts, because he's going to convert to wide receiver to make a boatload more money. But I have him going second wide receiver-wise because I think that he is definitely better than Waddle. So let's go to number 8, the Panthers, Rashawn Slater. They go offensive tackle. They have a quarterback now. They don't really need a lot of weapons. So I think they take the second-best offensive tackle in the draft in Rashawn Slater. Number 9, the Broncos. They go defense. Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I'm not sure. I think that the Broncos go quarterback here. I think that they go defense. Surtain just happened to be the number 1 defensive guy on my board. I would not be surprised if they go with another quarterback, maybe J.C. Horn, maybe Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. He's going to be the guy that's at the draft, so he obviously expects to go in the first round. But I do think they go Surtain here. The Falcons, I have them drafting, obviously trading back. So they're going to pick at number 10 where the Cowboys originally were. I think they go defense. I like Micah Parsons. He's a guy that's been consistently inside of draft top 10s since the beginning of the year. Very, very talented linebacker out of Penn State. I think the Falcons need defense. Obviously, people have shown them taking quarterback in a lot of drafts strictly because of their draft position at 4. With them dropping back, I think it gives them a chance to take a guy who is more readily projected within the top 10, but maybe not one of those top few guys. And defensively, I think that's Micah Parsons. And John, here we go.
Yeah.
John, number 11. I think they go edge rusher. I don't think they go with a wide receiver. I don't think they go with a target. I think they go Kwity Paye, the edge rusher out of Michigan, because I think that they need to solidify that defensive line a little bit. I get it. Waddle is still going to be on the board, so I would not. If you're looking at my draft, I think I get the desire to draft a guy who's going to be a solid wide receiver and make a lot of flashy plays. But I think more importantly than that is getting a defensive edge rusher that can really, really play solid defensive ball and put pressure on quarterbacks, and that's what Kwity Paye does. So I think he goes 11 to the Giants.
I have, what was it, a couple mock drafts and for who the Giants picked more, specifically. And NFL.com, CBS's recent one, which are pretty much yesterday in the time of this recording, both have Kwity Paye at a defensive end out of Michigan. Now, I'm glad it's not Rousseau, because for some reason the Giants fans do not like Rousseau out of Miami as an edge rusher. I'm fine with this Paye pick, but as he can't miss at defensive end, is this a guy who's just going to start right away? Because not that I want to say that the recent Giants draft picks, because I think they've been good, but Dexter Lawrence took a little time to develop. Dalvin Tomlinson is no longer a Giant, but he took a little time to develop. Last year was great. Again, not knocking him at all. It took a little time to develop. Will Paye be on this defensive line right away and contribute?
I think that there's, in this draft class, 2 edge rushers that are really set themselves apart from the rest of the class, and it's Paye and, as you mentioned, Rousseau, another guy who's going to be attending the draft, so obviously he expects to go in the first round. I think that he's a guy that can make an impact. I think that there's a reason he's projected to go to the Giants so high in a lot of mock drafts. And I think that goes to say that he can be a difference maker day one for this Giants team. With a lot of the wide receivers in the draft, I don't know if you can say that. I get it. I think that there's 3 guys. There's at wide receiver, there's 3 guys who are going to be difference makers at day one, and it's Waddle, Smith, and Chase. Waddle's still going to be on the board. I would not be surprised if the Giants take him. They have a history of taking offensive players in the first round.
Not a good one, Brennan. Not a good one.
Not a great one, but hey, they're taking offensive players. Mm-hmm. But I think they change it up. I think they go Kwity Paye, and I think that he does make a difference for them in his first year on the roster.
If the draft plays out like exactly you're saying, I love that pick. If Devontae Smith's gone at 7, like you said, I'm definitely good with that pick. So, I again, Paye's not someone I followed in college and was like, oh, I can't wait to see him as a Giant. Obviously, I think everyone wants the Heisman Trophy winner too, regardless of what you actually need as a team. But nonetheless, I do like that pick, and again, I don't think the Giants really, which is a good thing. Not that this draft's not important, because every draft is. But this isn't a make-or-break draft for the Giants, I don't think. It's just either we bolster the team that we have right now or we don't, and I don't think it's earth-shattering. I don't think Paye adds 2 more wins if the Giants get him this year, things like that. But I do like the pick if we make it. The Giants.
Yeah, no, and obviously the Giants aren't picking from a spot where they usually do.
No.
Being 11 is a little further back than they have been the last few years. So I think that works out. Just going to run through the big picks pretty much at this point. A lot of names. Trey Lance goes 15 to the Patriots. There's been a lot of talk about the Patriots trading up to try and get Mac Jones, maybe even trading into the top 10. I don't think that they do that. I think that they wait at 15. There's still going to be at least one quarterback on the board. I think they like Lance more than Jones. I get it. Jones is a pocket passer, and that's what the Patriots have had for a while, but Lance is the better prospect overall. The other quarterback, Mac Jones, I do have him going in the first round. I have him going to the Bears at number 20. Their deal with Dalton is only 1 year, so they're going to need a quarterback here at some point. It's not going to be Mitch Trubisky because, Dan, where's he?
I think I might know where he is, the Nickelodeon Valuable Player of the Year. Yeah, it might be Western New York.
Buffalo. He changed his number. He's not the same Mitch that we know and love, so he's not going to be in Chicago. The Bears take Mac Jones at 20. First running back goes at 24 to the Steelers, Najee Harris. He's not the only running back, though. I did have Travis Etienne going to the Buccaneers at 32. And then for us, Dan, I have the Packers taking Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver out of Florida, at the 29th overall pick. I think they either go there or with Rondale Moore. I think it really depends on whether or not they want to have a guy on the outside who can catch a lot of passes, which they already kind of have that in Devontae Adams, or if they want to grab a slot receiver, which is clearly more because he showed up at his pro day. But I think that Tony gives you a lot more options, whether it be on the outside or the inside, where Moore is more of just a one-dimensional slot receiver kind of guy. And for the Bills, the only interior defensive lineman that I have being taken in the first round, Christian Barmore, the interior defensive lineman out of Alabama. He's a guy that is going to be at the draft. He expects to go in the first round, and I have him waiting just a little while and going to the Bills at number 30. But I think that if they can shore up that interior defensive line, I think that they're going to be very, very dangerous because we saw how good the offense is already. And I think that if they can shore up the defense, that makes the team a lot better overall.
So there you go, NFL mock draft from our very own Brennan Miller. Can't wait to write down these picks, or I guess you share the document or whatever, so I don't do that much work. And to watch along on draft night on Thursday. And hey, I want to, as a Giant fan, and I think most Giant fans want a receiver, but if it's not Devontae Smith, Pay is a good pick, and I think Brennan nailed it overall. I'm definitely, I think you got more than 5 in there. That's my hope for you. I want this to be a PR. Yeah.
I hope so.
So that is Brennan's mock draft. When we come back, we'll give you our MVP of the week, and stay tuned later in the show because today, obviously Sunday, is Oscar Sunday, and we're gonna have a little special twist involving movies for the back half of the show. So don't go anywhere. You are watching or listening to the MVP show.
Hey besties, if you love VIC radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Welcome back to the MVP show here on YouTube and on VIC Radio. Dan Passante, Brennan Miller, I'm John Vicari. We've talked the Knicks and their winning streak thus far and being a playoff team. We broke down the NFL draft, and Brennan gave you his thoughts, a full mock draft, really 1 through 12, which you should go back and listen to, especially later in the week, so you know what's happening on Thursday, because Brennan did a lot of work into that. And
smart.
Yes, he's smart. So that we had that already, but now we're gonna have our MVP of the week. Refresher for those who may be new or just want really to find out again. The MVP of the week is what we think someone or something that had a great week. It could be in sports, news, pop culture, entertainment, whatever. It really, the bounds are endless in terms of where we could go. And Dan, we'll start with you.
So my runner-up this week is the Rolling Stones, whose album Sticky Fingers turned 50 yesterday by the time of this recording, the 23rd. Even if you don't like rock music or respect the Stones, you should listen to Sticky Fingers. It's an all-time classic. But my MVP this week has to be the DreamWorks absolute creation that turned 20 years old. You're right, folks at home. The film Shrek is my MVP this week. It turned 20 on April 22nd. Arguably the second best Shrek film. Shrek 2, by Twitter's opinion, is probably superior. But this absolute classic, loosely based on some fairy tales, but is overall just a truth of the cinematic universe, has turned 20 years old. And I think that I had to make it the MVP.
That's awesome. That's just incredible. Oh, I'm so glad. Dan, I remembered like halfway through your first one that you had told me yesterday that this was the that the day before was the 20th anniversary of Shrek. So I knew that's where you were going, and I absolutely love it. Mine's going to be sports related. Unfortunately, I know, it sucks. Mine's going to be the fans of the Premier League in England who single-handedly took down the European Super League, this proposed league that our show has lasted at this point years longer than. It just didn't make any sense. I mean, I get it. The teams wanted to go out and make a boatload of money, but then when all your fans are going to turn against you and the only thing you're going to be making money from is TV deals and not merchandising and not because your fans love your team, why would you do it? So the fact that a bunch of bros were able to get together, post some stuff on their Instagram stories, and make a change is power to the people. We've seen our age girls do it for a long time, posting about stuff that they care about on their Instagram stories, but they haven't created any change. But the boys went out and did, because the Super League is bad, and now it's folding.
So the MVP of the week is the fans and not the Super League.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely, the opposite of the Super League.
Yeah, these are tough ones to top. I come in with a pretty much normal, mundane, run-of-the-mill one. I'm gonna have some.
Not Shrek.
No, no DreamWorks animated movie. It's not How to Train Your Dragon or something like that. It is actually, and I think a segment of our fans are going to be happy with this because this is not something that, especially Brendan or I, usually praise. But my MVP of the week has to be Jacob deGrom. Brendan shrugs. Every week, this guy, and it's been a short MLB season, we're still in April, every week he just impresses me. More and more. He's on pace to do astronomical things this year. It's unbelievable. He threw a complete game against the Washington Nationals on Friday night. So 9 innings, allowing only 2 hits, no earned runs, and 15 strikeouts. A dominant performance. He has, through 4 starts, an 0.31 ERA. Unbelievable. And with that, by the way, a 2-1 record, which is insane that he doesn't even have an ERA that's a half. Not even a 1 ERA, a half, and he still has a loss due to the Mets offense, but they did come through for him yesterday. But in part because of Jacob deGrom at the plate. He's a pitcher, and in 11 at-bats, he has 6 hits. It's a .545 average. He had an RBI double yesterday. That's crazy. I know he's an athlete, and I know pitchers are becoming better hitters just across the board in terms of average. I mean, it's not anything to write home about, but obviously the more athletes that are pitchers and, maybe played American college ball where they get to be in the lineup, that happens. But, I mean, it's amazing. He's a bona fide stud, and the reason that the Mets, even though they are, and not as bad as the Yankees through this start, but definitely shaky at times, but you pitch him, there's no one better right now. It's unbelievable. And the fact that he can not only just pitch a dominant performance, a complete game, you don't need the bullpen in a key divisional series, again, early on in the season, but still, you want to take as many games within the division as possible. But he not only helps that, but he helps the offense. Because he knows when he's pitching, for some reason, the Mets bats go quiet into the night more so than they do when 2 through 5 in the rotation are pitching. I don't understand why that happens, but it does. But deGrom still supports in that scenario. He, again, I know this it sounds maybe odd coming from a Yankees fan, but you got to give respect where respect's due. And Jacob deGrom is my MVP of the week. It's not exciting. I'm sorry, like Shrek or the fans of the Super League, but that is the MVP of the week. And Brendan, I knew when Dan opened it up for some reason. I don't know. It was just I think a something in the mind when he said honorable mention Rolling Stones and he said anniversary like it's 50 years. I was like, oh my God, Shrek's his MVP because Shrek literally the synapses in the brain fired off. I could feel it too. And Dan, I think Dan wins this week in terms of MVP of the week. That's hilarious.
I think Shrek wins this week, as usual. I think Shrek wins every week.
Yeah, and the funny thing, and I guess like the best tweet of the week, which is not a segment, but unless someone wants to go out and sponsor it, then we'll make it a segment. But Dan showed me this week, Netflix Film had a tweet, and it was pretty much the trend that's going around that maybe we'll get onto too, where it's just an image and then someone brackets it by yeah. So it's bracketed, and it's like, oh, okay, good kids movie in the beginning of Shrek, and then the rest of it's greatest film of all time. And that's Netflix Film, because literally that's how like internet culture proceeds, because it was a part of everyone's childhood. It was so funny, and this is not to get like, just weird with it, but this is what we see. It was, one of those brackets, it was like, oh, okay, good movie. And then the rest of it said, first biracial couple and body positivity that I've ever seen as a kid. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's Shrek. Like, people are taking like real world like life. It's Shrek. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that definitely MVP of the week worthy. And we're going to continue talking movies for the rest of this show. It's not, believe me, we're not going to give you our Oscar picks. We don't have a list or betting odds with that. We don't know. I haven't seen any. Yeah. What was that? Yeah, no mock drafts.
Mock drafts.
no movie mock drafts. I honestly don't have a clue what's nominated. What we're going to give you, something that we told you a couple weeks ago, we're going to give our top 5 sports movies of all time. Each of us have a list, curated, debated about in our minds, but we're going to give it to you, the people. I'm sure there's going to be disagreement amongst us here. Maybe a couple movies that we both, or all 3 of us, may have in the same top 5. We will see, but probably not in the same places. So that's a reason to stay with us, and we appreciate if you do on VIC Radio and on our YouTube channel. You are watching or listening to the MVP Show.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Welcome back to the MVP Show here on VIC Radio and on YouTube. Thanks for watching or listening on this Sunday, the last Sunday in April 25th. And the Sunday in April means that it's possibly the Oscars, and that is what is today. The 93rd Academy Awards are tonight. And in the spirit of the Academy Awards, we decide that we're going to do a top 5 and what we think, I guess, we know the best. And that's sports movies, because we're sports fans and on a sports radio show currently. So it's our top 5 sports movies. Long debate after, or in terms of making this list, all of us, I'm sure there was movies that we love and that we have great experiences with that are not on this list, maybe have to be honorable mentions. But nonetheless, a top 5 greatest sports movies of all time. Dan, you're going to start us off. Who is your number 5?
I was thinking about it a few minutes ago, just typing some stuff down, and as controversial as it may be, I think number 5 for me has to be Space Jam.
Wow.
Sneaking in at number 5.
Wow. See, you know what's funny? I have a basketball, just to spoil my list a little, each movie is a different sport, because I felt like that was the best way, and I was debating whether putting a basketball movie or a movie that just has like I don't even want to say non-traditional, just a sport that's not in the 4 major ones as my 5th option. But Dan, I decided to go with basketball movies as well. I think you're going to like this pick too. It's not Space Jam, which I think is definitely in my top 3 basketball movies of all time, if we just, a separate list. Number 5 for me, and maybe people will think this should be disqualified because it's technically a documentary. For me, it's Hoop Dreams. To me, that movie was so darn good. It just is like pretty much the quintessential sports documentary. And it's categorized as a movie, and people put it on lists. So I think that's why I could, not that I care, but like I think it just isn't like, I don't know, I don't put it in that 30 for 30 sphere that maybe other people do, where it's like, oh, it's only a documentary. To me, it is like a cinematic experience just because of how just really like long it is. Not in a bad way either. It's just very in-depth, and it's a whole coming-of-age process. It's not just, all right, this basketball player is really good, or these basketball players, because it's multiple subjects, but it's, coming of age through high school, and it took a lot of time to film, and it's just well done. Every single minute of it means something. It has you think, it has you laugh, it has you get upset and emotional. So that's why, for me, number 5 is Hoop Dreams. For some reason, I don't think that Brennan's number 5 is going to be a basketball movie.
It is not. I have 0 basketball movies on my list. I will warn us for future reference.
Yeah.
My number 5 is going to be strictly for the rewatchability. The fact that it's always on, and the fact that I can always watch it and it will always hit, is the Adam Sandler classic, The Longest Yard. Wow. So you didn't know where I was going there. The Longest Yard is number 5 for me. I love the movie. I think that it is very, very, very well made. I get that it's a remake. But I think that strictly because you can put it on at any time, and it will always, always be just as good as the first time that you watched it. The Longest Yard is my number 5.
Wow. The only reason it gets a pass in terms of remake is because they decided to put Burt Reynolds in it. Like, if the Willy Wonka decided...
Absolutely.
If the Willy Wonka decided to put Gene Wilder in the Johnny Depp one as like a cameo, or as like the old Willy Wonka, it would have saved that movie. That's what The Longest Yard did. Should it be anywhere not near top 5 greatest sports movie of all time list? Absolutely not.
Oh,
Dan,
John, you're gonna be so mad when you hear my honorable mentions.
well, the honorable mentions could be anything. That's not top 5.
You're gonna be so mad.
This is on your top 5. Dan, do you have thoughts on this? Am I going crazy? Longest Yard, the 2006 movie.
I thought he was. Oh, okay, I'm not muted. I thought he was going Happy Gilmore there, and I was getting really excited.
Which would have been more acceptable to me, because that's the top golf movie of all time. No matter, well, I mean, people are gonna say Caddyshack. Yeah, I forgot. People are gonna say Caddyshack. People are gonna also say, what's that one with Shia LaBeouf? But I don't know. But Gilmore could be up there, and I could sort of make I could make a argument more so than The Longest Yard.
John, ask me what my favorite movie of all time is.
I'm not. I'm afraid.
Grown-Ups. Grown-Ups. Because it's always on Paramount, and I can always watch it, and it'll always be there for me. Same thing. Adam Sandler's always there. He's always there to give you a nice warm hug. In my top 5, okay?
Is your favorite drink water, by the way? That's always there.
I mean...
Is your favorite food toast?
Hey, if it's always there. If I can make toast any day of the week.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Wow, I don't even know where to go from there. Dan, give us our number 4, and if it's The Longest Yard, I think we're just ending the show early.
It's not The Longest Yard. I know that. So you said you had a sports documentary. I'm gonna keep my one sports documentary pick for number 3. Okay. So number 4, I'm going to put in as Rudy. I remember watching it when I was really young. I think I was in I was still in grade school the first time I saw Rudy, and I was like, wow. I still remember that was a genuinely great movie. So I definitely want to put that in at 4.
Wow. Yeah, that is, I'm not going to put it, it is on my list. It is not number 4. Rudy is in my top 3. My number 4, though, is a baseball movie, what I consider the greatest baseball movie of all time. Brennan's going to disagree with this a lot. But it's Field of Dreams. I knew, but Brennan thinks it's Sandlot. I know, it's probably on his list. Field of Dreams. To me, it's just like, it really doesn't even make sense, but it's so freaking good. It makes me cry every time I watch it. It's a great story. It goes back into baseball history. I know Shoeless Joe Jackson doesn't bat left-handed. I know, all right? I'm sorry. Sorry that Ray Liotta doesn't give a crap, but that's just what happened, okay? And it's still a great movie. Kevin Costner, who is the most underrated actor of the 90s, is amazing in the role. For some reason, the whole movie is just in this, I don't even want to say gear, because usually you want to keep going up in gears, but it feels like it's the same throughout in a good way, where it just flows along so nicely, like you're reading a book, mainly because it was a book. And to me, it's the top baseball movie of all time. Other considerations I had, obviously, was Sandlot, was Major League, was League of Their Own, but they don't make the list. It is Field of Dreams, my number 4.
Mine's Rudy, my number 4.
Wow.
Dan, me and Dan have the same number 4. It's Rudy. Rudy's the one movie that, and I'm a big fan of rewatchability. Rudy's the one movie that makes me cry every single time at the end.
Yeah.
Every time. Not The Notebook, not anything like that. It's Rudy. So Rudy, and I have it written down. You guys can take a look after the show. I'm not going to show it now because I have the rest of my list right there.
Sure.
Is my number 4.
Wow. That's huge because it's on my list. So we all are in agreement that Rudy's the top 5 sports movie of all time. That is huge. That is huge.
So I guess we should, move it along to number 3. Like we were saying, if everyone has one that's kind of a documentary, then mine is going to go to number 3. And this is a strictly me thing. This movie is long, and if you don't like him, you're probably not going to find it interesting. But I loved When We Were Kings, that follows the Rumble in the Jungle between George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. I'm just a big Ali guy in general, so for me, that is number 3. But again, that movie is very long, and it follows all the twists and turns leading up to that fight. So if you're not a boxing person or Ali, I understand you not having.
I'll go next. My number 3 is going to be, unfortunately, and I will stick by this 100%, that every single boxing movie ever made is good. And John doesn't believe that. John?
Well, I say Grudge Match because Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro are great actors, and then they pretty much made a terrible boxing movie. and it even had Milo Ventimiglia or whatever, the guy who's Rocky's son, Rocky Balboa, and it had Kevin Hart, and it still wasn't great.
I don't care.
Okay.
So my number 3 is going to be Rocky 4, not the original Rocky. It's going to be Rocky 4 with
yes.
we're fighting Russians.
Yes.
So that's my number 3 because I almost put Rocky on there. If I wasn't splitting it up between sports, I think I would have both Rockies probably in my top 10.
Yeah.
But I like Rocky 4 just a little bit more.
Yeah. Wow. There you go. That I'm because Rocky 4 is an honorable mention for me. Rocky 4 is an honorable mention. So I had to put it, and maybe there'll be other Rockies on this list as we go on. Number 3, and I think, Brennan, this is going to be in your top 2. I'll be surprised if it's not, but my number 3 is Miracle. It is just a classic movie. Its realism is where I like it the most because it is one of the most realistic accounts of what happened. Sure, Al Michaels redubbed the lines, but that was just for movie quality. But literally everything he said in the broadcast, along with Ken Dryden. In terms of players, they were pretty much all, I wouldn't say similar in likeness, because they, obviously they picked actors more on their skating ability than their acting ability, which I actually preferred as well. These guys were real hockey players, obviously not to the level of the players that they were actually portraying, but played hockey well. And Kurt Russell as Herb Brooks is unbelievable. You sort of, and it's because I hadn't watched a lot of Kurt Russell movies before that, but he just fits in as Herb Brooks. Like, I don't even think of him as Kurt Russell, and it's such a hard thing to do, especially when you're in a lot of movies, to escape into that role. And it's pretty funny because I think my top 2 are people who, they're actors and they're known really mainly for their portrayal of a person. Maybe not number 1 because actually it's not really a portrayal, but they're known for playing that part only. And I don't even know if Kurt Russell is. I think a lot of people, he's been in a lot of movies, but for me, he's Herb Brooks. It's such a great movie about a great game and a great event in not just American history, but in my opinion, in world history. And that's why Miracle, for me, is number 3. We get into the top 2, and this is where it's going to be fun, I think. But yeah.
I'll go for number 2.
You just jump in.
Yeah. I want to go first for this one because my number 2 is a hockey movie. I will give you that.
I swear, Brennan, if it's the one where the Rangers lose, what is it, Mystery Alaska?
It's not Mystery Alaska.
Okay.
No, it's not Mystery Alaska.
Or not the Rangers lose. They play close. Yeah, get the heck out of here.
It's a hockey movie. It's a classic. Obviously, everyone's going to know what it is. And it has some great performances. As you mentioned, John, it's Slapshot.
Wow.
My number 2. Yeah, Slapshot, because it's a great movie. It's very, very good. It's hilarious. And it was filmed in my hometown. The majority of the hockey scenes in Slapshot were filmed in Clinton Arena, which is, and I have the poster, or the thing, it's Hockeytown, USA, Clinton, New York.
Wow.
Or Hockeyville, USA. They won that a few years, I think 2018? Yeah, 2018. So that holds just a special place for me. And I will say, that is the hockey movie that I have in my top 5.
Wow. I can't really knock it. Slapshot is well regarded. Probably top 3 hockey movie of all time in terms of what people think. Dan, I don't think you're going to have hockey at number 2.
I do not have hockey at number 2. I am yet to include a baseball movie, so I went to the diamond for this one. And no, it is not basketball. I saw that on a few lists. That movie looks absolutely ridiculous. My number 2 movie, because again, it's a movie I remember watching. I remember how I felt when I watched this. It's a great one. Is Moneyball.
Wow.
I remember seeing it in theaters for the first time. Based on a true story kind of thing. I really enjoyed Moneyball for sure. Definitely in my top 2.
Wow. Well, this is where I have Rudy. Rudy is the second best sports movie of all time. Listen, again, another movie that just, again, not like gear shift. It just, the whole thing's awesome. Every scene is just great in Rudy. It's such a great story. People can call it cliche. I think it pretty much invented the cliche of sports movies. Obviously, I know there was sports movies before 1993, but it's just so perfect throughout. And it doesn't even rush into anything, even though, you feel like the end result. It's like it's a process. You could feel how much this guy had to go through. the disconnect from family and not believing in him, from friends not believing in him. And the best part, as Dan mentioned with Moneyball, it's a true story. It actually happened, which is absolutely crazy, but it did, and it's such a great job by Sean Astin to play the role. He's great in pretty much teen movies of the 80s, and then in this movie was just great playing Rudy, and that's why it's number 2. I'm glad we all have it on the list. I guess you guys think it's a little high, putting it at number 4, but for me, it is the second best sports movie of all time. We're finally at the moment. Who wants to give first their the greatest sports movie of all time? This one I think this is gonna be fun.
I can go first because
Okay.
I have them. We already kind of brought it up, but not too many people get inducted into Hall of Fames after making movies about a sport, and I think that needs to be brought up when we're talking about Rocky 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It is. I just put the word Rocky for number 1. Now, I didn't get into the specifics. You could put the Creed, kind of break off of it. That was another twist in the story. But I think the Rocky story for me in terms of sports movies is number 1.
Yeah, I agree. Rocky is number 1. I have Rocky 1 as number 1. I just wrote Rocky on my list. I would put specifically Rocky 4, even though it's on Brennan's list, as an honorable mention. The only Rocky you don't include is Rocky 5, if we're wondering, by the way. And notice how Dan went Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and then stopped. That was intended, because 5 was not that great. But Rocky is the greatest sports movie of all time. Sylvester Stallone, the fact he wrote it and didn't want to sell it because he wanted to act in it himself. The budget is not even great. There's so many things if you go back and rewatch it that there's, and you go on IMDb and you're like, they had to do this because of low budget. They had to do this. And it's just a perfect movie. It just, again, as I mentioned, it's great in terms of Sylvester Stallone's performance. He plays the role perfectly. And the best part, it's not cliche because Rocky doesn't even win in the end. He doesn't. He went the distance. That was the whole thing. But there's realism in it that obviously faded as the series went on. But that didn't, the fact that, I don't know, but the fact that he loses in that is something I think people forget and should be noted because I think it makes the movie even better. The performances in it are great. And it was made in the 70s, which it just doesn't seem like, not to knock old movies because, old movies are great, but it's timeless. You can go back and watch it anytime. As Brennan mentioned with some of his, it is rewatchability. Rocky is number 1 on my list.
Yeah, number 1's The Sandlot.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like 100%. I own PF Flyers. They're not the originals from the movie. I will say those were sold out by the time that I was going to get them. This is also the hat that Scotty Smalls wears while he is first making his appearance at The Sandlot. You want to talk about rewatchability? I mean, how many times could you watch The Sandlot and just be brought back to your days of playing wiffle ball in the backyard? The Sandlot is, without a doubt, my favorite movie of all time. It's actually a Miller family staple. My brother has a Squints Palladino jersey that he wears out to parties and stuff. Or he would wear out to parties. He right now just wears it walking around his dorm room. But it is absolutely a coming-of-age story that we have not seen in sports. And I think that really plays into the fact that, first time I saw it, I was a kid. I was young, man. And then it was a representation of the things that we did as kids and just kind of going outside and having fun whenever we could with our friends. So The Sandlot is absolutely my number 1 sports movie of all time, without a doubt.
And those are our top 5 sports movies of all time. I think we delivered. In terms of well-researched, we had some similarities, we had some differences, and Brennan's number 5, he just didn't try, but that's okay. Because, no.
Can I read my honorable mentions just to make you a little bit more upset?
Yeah, very quickly.
Movies that I have outside, the worst than Longest Yard. A League of Their Own was in 6th.
That's fine.
Dodgeball, 7. Talladega Nights, 8. Goon, 9.
Goon.
Happy Gilmore, and Miracle were my honorable mentions.
You have Goon ahead of Miracle. I don't even know what to say. All right.
I have 3 hockey movies in my top 11.
All right. On that terrible note, we will end our show. Thank you for watching or listening. For Dan Passante and Brennan Miller, I'm John Vicari. This has been the MVP Show.